Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Just Another Esports podcast. Once again, you're joined by me, your host, Nicholas Shady Bacon, and my co host, Mr. Kevin Hubris. It's been 2 weeks since we last had the episode, and we did see another Challengers Cup come and go in the pro scene. The next two that we're going to have, they're not going to start up until after the holiday break. I believe the third cup will be on the weekend of January like 8th/9th, and then the other one, the fourth cup, will be the following weekend. So we got a little less than a month, I guess, away from those, but we'll talk about the results of the Challengers Cup 2. We'll be discussing some of the finalized rosters for the pro scene, since those are pretty much all out in the open by now. And then we'll also be diving into the scouting series that did occur. Only 3 days, really only kind of 2 days occurred for that Scouting Grounds series. And we'll be talking about kind of the star players, but kind of the players that really piqued maybe some people's interest. I'll talk about kind of the players that impressed me a little bit, at least kind of from the streams that I was watching. Some of the issues that uh, we kind of saw as a result of it, and then kind of players and coaches' mindsets towards that. And so going into the first topic, I guess we'll just go briefly over kind of the finalized roster. We do finally have kind of an idea of what the Paris lineup is going to be. It looks like it's going to be a lineup of Skrapz, Aqua, Fire 40, and who was their fourth? Oh, crap. I'm forgetting their fourth. Skrapz, Aqua, Fire 40. Do you remember their fourth by any chance? I know their coach is Theory.
Bro, honestly, like it's Paris, man. This is just such like it's just another chapter in in the tragedy of Paris Legion. Like I'm counting down the days until the season's over for them, and then that team spot can get bought up by somebody who gives a damn.
Yeah, that seems like it would be the best thing to happen. It's very shocking that they didn't decide to go with an all French lineup. I'm assuming probably the reasoning for that is because they couldn't get their absurd request of having all of their matches be played on a Paris host,
Oh my
which,
gosh.
yeah, no way, there's no way that was ever happening. Um, but yeah, the Paris lineup is not looking good at all. It's probably it no, it is probably the worst lineup in the league by a decent margin, I would say. Um,
Oh, no doubt.
they are going with an amateur player though. I guess you can give a little praise to them there, but that's probably mostly because they didn't want to have to pay these players anything, and a good way to pay someone a minimum salary is to pick up an AM. Uh, but we'll probably talk about this once we go into the scouting series. From the scouting series, it seemed like there was plenty of decent French talent they could have picked from if they had just jumped on the wagon a little bit early. They missed out on Hydra, but there's still quite a decent pool of talent over in the Paris region, as we'll see when we dive into the scouting series. But I am trying to find their fourth because I had it in my head, and now their name is escaping me. Uh, but I guess until it pops back into my head, we'll dive back into a less depressing topic of the Challengers Cup. Challengers Cup number
Yeah.
2. I guess it might be depressing for some of these teams. Again, built by gamers, the squad of Kismet, GodRX, Pander, and Mox. They once again failed to get top 8. They bowed out top 16. This time around, Ace had a different lineup of him, Diamond Kong, Lacefield, and Prolute. They also went out at top 16. Uh, in, I guess, more impressive fashion, Team Babyface, or Westar, now is their official name, they went
Westar.
back to back. So there was only a week in between Challengers Cup 1 and Challengers Cup 2, but that's a pretty good look for them. And they've been scrimming a decent number of the pro teams. I've seen them scrim Optic Gaming. I believe they've also scrimmed New York at one point. I might be misremembering that, but they 100% scrimmed Optic and took a decent number of maps off them. So it's looking like a very strong lineup that might be the team to beat in the challenger scene this year. Triumph Gaming, who had won the champs for challengers in Modern Warfare, they finish in top 8 for another Challengers Cup. That's 2 in a row now, and I believe Fellow actually left that roster, and so it's Royalty, Standy General, and I'm not sure who their fourth was. There was someone scrimming with them earlier today. If I go to probably
Oh yeah, I was about to say. Hold on a second. I just saw this on Twitter.
thanks to Call of Duty Intel or
Yeah, CDL Intel. Shout
Dave
out
Patty.
Charlie. Yes, yeah, Dave Patty. That's right.
Yep. So Fellow's not on that roster anymore. It'll be interesting to see where he winds up. And honestly, I guess after this the second Challengers Cup, the Challengers scene went into a bit of a crazy roster mania with a bunch of people shifting teams. I know Mox is no longer on Built by Gamers. I believe Brack and Sensor are now teaming together. So just a whole lot of player swapping going around. And I think that's all the best for Westar since they're definitely not making any changes. And it's probably also good for the team that got second this time around of Spoof, Stamino, Pentagrams, and Zinc. I believe they got top 4 last time, that Hyper team. And so you got 2 teams here that are looking pretty darn solid in the Challengers Cup, and everyone else is just kind of shifting loyalties, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, that is definitely true. Honestly, the scene is making way more noise than it has in previous years in the preseason. Call of Duty news is insane right now. So like even keeping up on these little details is just a lot. But seems like there's always something going on, right?
Yeah, it does. Especially, I feel like Challengers is getting a lot more notice this year, and honestly, uh, it feels like
It
Challenge.
deserves it.
Yeah, it does deserve it, but like Challengers getting so much attention, I think now, honestly, some of it could be the result of, well, we don't have any professional Call of Duty, so we only can watch the AM scene right now, and then also
Right.
we have people that were in the pro scene last season coming back into the Challenger season. I know Wuskins actually, he tweeted that he's going to be competing in Challengers this season as well. So I don't know if he's going to be competing over in the UK or if he's still in the United States. I would imagine he probably moved back to the UK, but I'm not 100% sure on his living situation. Um,
Me either.
as we probably shouldn't be, but uh,
Well,
yeah,
from what
it's
I
getting.
understand though, as far as like most pro players living situations go, a lot of them are moving to Texas. Um,
Yes, I think there was a stat that came out. It was like 31 or 32 of the 48 pro players are in Texas.
Yes. And I mean it makes sense. Like the league's gonna be online. Might as well get everybody on the same server so nobody can bitch and moan about I got 150 ping against the Brits, and the Brits are like, oh, and when you host, it's 150 ping. Nobody cares. Everybody just wants you to play the game. We understand that land's not here. So I'm just glad that they're all moving to Texas. They're getting it figured out. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, it'll definitely lessen, I guess, the excuses of the teams when they don't win a series. Obviously, it's still online COD or whatever, but with the most of the teams being in Texas, their connection is going to be relatively the same. And since they've had a lot more time to prepare for an online league, um, they really don't have any excuse in my eyes. And I don't think they really had too much excuse last season either, but even less so now. And actually, I guess we can do a little side branch before we jump into the European and the APAC Challengers Cup results, since I did want to just cover briefly kind of the outcomes over there. We could jump into kind of the format this year for the Call of Duty League, since that did get announced in a wonderful video from the voice of Miles Ross. So the season format, I guess, for this year, for the 2020 or 2021 Call of Duty League season, is it's going to include 5 stages, each culminating in a major tournament. And so during each stage, all teams will compete in 5 group play matches to determine their seed in each major. And so I believe there are 3 of these quote unquote home series where you'll have a group A and a group B that will each play some group play, and the results of those group plays will determine their seeding for the upcoming major event, which will have all of the teams at it. And so that will be in a bracket very similar to the one used for champs, where you'll have the bottom 4 teams starting in losers facing off in losers round 1, and where you have the top 2 teams starting all the way up in winners semis. I don't really like that positioning. I'm imagining they're doing that positioning of the bracket simply for the sake of kind of the duration of the tournament, since I believe they're probably limiting it again to just a Saturday and Sunday tournament. I wish, because it's going to be online, and even if they do kind of move back to in-person events, I still feel like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday would work pretty darn well. You could start some of the matches late Friday night, and I don't think it would cause anyone too much dismay. Most people get off work,
Yeah.
I would say, like, between 3 and 5 on Fridays or something like that. And so if they started it at
Sort
6
of.
or whatever, you would still get a decent number of people that could show up. And so it could be like Friday night COD or whatever.
Right.
And I think the format I would like to see with the bracket style is you have the bottom 8 teams all facing off in the first round, or the bottom, yeah,
Yeah, the
the
bottom
bottom
8.
8, and then you have the first, second, third, and fourth seed all starting in round 2 of winners bracket. I think that'd be a lot better. And then the points accumulated from the major championships will, I'm assuming probably also the home series group plays, will result in their seeding for the Call of Duty Championship at the end of the season. I'll put the video to the link to the video that kind of explained this formatting probably a little bit better with some visuals in the description. But what's your opinion on this? I really like this change personally.
Uh, hmm. Honestly, kind of indifferent about it. I mean, it's nice. I do like the way that the scene is evolving, and I like the way that production is happening. But I mean, until I really interact or like integrate it into my lifestyle, I don't know. I just watch COD all the time. I don't really think about like whenever whenever it's on, like, oh, you know, it interferes with my work life balance or something. I just watch COD, man. So I guess I'm different. I'm indifferent about how they give it to me. I just want it.
Yeah, I
That makes
think
sense.
one really good thing is that because you have, yeah, these majors, which every team's at, the chip
Yeah.
discussion is not going to be a discussion anymore. It's just going to be a fact. These all count towards
Right.
your number of chips. And I really like that, how they kind of have that division between majors and then uh, the kind of like the home series. It's almost group stage in a sense. Like they've split up what you used to only have. Like there pretty much is no regular season in a sense,
Yeah, I guess.
because like the quote unquote what are the regular season matches aren't really regular season matches anymore. They're group stage matches. So you've kind of just divided up what you would used to have at old Call of Duty tournaments, where you had the four groups. Everyone would play everyone in that group. I believe it was twice. And then the top two teams from each of those groups would go into the winners bracket, and the bottom two from each would go into the losers bracket. They've kind of done a similar thing here, except it's only a group A and a group B, so there's 6 teams to each group. I imagine once they expand to 16, it'll be 4 groups of 4 probably, and they'll do
That'd be
something a
sweet.
bit similar. But that's kind of all they've really done here. So these group stage matches, I think a lot of the teams are actually not seeing how important these are. Maybe not the teams, but I think a lot of people are underestimating how important these non-major series matches are going to be. And it's also nice because, like, after each major, the seeding resets. So if you have a weak start to the season, you can still catch up. And I think that that's also a really important factor here.
Yeah, that is a very important to note because there were teams that heated up at the end that would have been very competitive, but since FaZe had done so well in the beginning, it was basically impossible to dethrone them. So, and and that's kind of unfair in my opinion. You know, if a team starts heating up at the end, you know, if anything, they should be placed a little bit more like higher because it's a little bit more recent. You know, your momentum will carry over.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no, these home series, these group stages are actually going to be extremely important. And so I hope people don't undermine kind of the importance of them and the importance of each of these matches, because I mean, you lose maybe 1 or 2 matches in your group stage, you're not going to be getting first seed probably. And that can
true.
definitely affect that will definitely hurt you when it comes to that major. So these matches are going to be incredibly important, at least in my eyes. And so I hope people don't overlook that.
Like I said, I mean, you know, and I guess to further my point, this is still a band-aid for, you know, COVID, and I'm sure that land will be returning eventually. Um, and then when land comes back, you know, it's the format's probably going to revert back to whatever it was, or they'll come up with something completely different. So, like I said, everything just seems to change by the week, and
Yeah, I don't
and
think they'll go back to the 2020 format, because I think this works a lot better in, like, every match is important.
right,
So
yeah, we'll see.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what occurs. I mean, I think they're always going to kind of iterate on this until they find a sweet spot, especially if they're expanding the number of teams. I imagine the formatting is probably going to change a couple of times throughout the Call of Duty League's life cycle. I mean, you look at Riot and League of Legends; they've had a different format pretty much every season for that. So I imagine it's probably going to be relatively similar with Call of Duty as well.
It's just unfortunate. I mean, you want to give your fan base some sort of consistency, and it's hard whenever you change it every year. So, um, I don't know. I'm fine with experimenting and everything, but I really can't wait until it's just, hey, look, COD's on at this time. It's like football, like the NFL. I just know, hey, by the way, like Monday Night Football's on right now. Like, so
Yeah.
I would love if COD got to that point.
Well, it's probably a couple, I would say at least a century away from that, but we'll
Nah,
see. We'll see. Jumping back to the Challengers Cup for Europe, we had Orglis, which is that team of Dave, Vortex, Josh, and Nasty. They came out in first this time around. I believe they got top 6 or top 8 last time. And then you had the Spanish Rams, that team of Journey, Lucky Metals, and Nvidian. They got second. House Tarth, who took first place in the prior one, they ended up in third. Obtained Esports, which had a number of players that competed. I think all their players competed in the scouting series and did quite well. In BB Connor, Callum, Harry, and Hixie. And then Singularity, they got fifth through sixth. And Sween got seventh through eighth. And actually, looking at Not Hard, I think it's a spin-off of Train Hard, is an almost all French lineup, I believe, in Brezzy, Whalers, Urban, and Chain. I know Chain is not French. Not sure about Urban. I'm pretty sure he's European or UK as well. But Whalers and Brezzy, 100% French.
Yes.
Yep, Urban. Yeah, no, Urban's not French. But that's you got a roster right there. Top 8. You got 2 French players on that, and Whalers was above and beyond one of the best players in the scouting series on the UK side. Jumping all the way over though to the APAC region. Once again, Renegades won. That's the lineup of Shocks, Fida, Luca, and Jazin. I believe that name is different from who was on it last time around. I believe this player subbed in, or maybe they just substituted out whoever they had last time. If we go back to Cup 1 and we go to the results for Asia Pacific, I know it was, yeah, they had Pred instead. Okay, so I believe Pred was subbed out, not permanently. I think it was just a temporary substitution. Chief Esports Club, they got second this time. Void, they got third. So those two flipped. And then you got the Japanese team in
Did you say
fourth
flop
place.
flipped?
Flip-flopped. And then you got the Japanese lineup over there in fourth and in top 8. So not bad.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, they did really, really good, Nick, and I'm really, really happy for APAC because we all love to watch APAC. Anyway, congrats to the Renegades for yet again doing exactly what we said they were gonna do all season. And yeah, like I said, that's about as much attention as I want to give it.
Yeah, so that will do it for that. And now we're going to move on to the scouting series. So the not top, but 64 players from both the European and the North American regions were invited to this. It was going to be a 4-day series where the 12 coaches from the Call of Duty League would draft rosters to compete against each other in they weren't actually best of 5 series because they actually played all 5 maps every single time. So they would play 5 games against different coaches' rosters twice a day for both the North American and the European scenes. The coaches were there quite a while. I believe each coach stream probably went on for about 8-ish hours or so between the European and the North American regions. And it was very interesting. I highly enjoyed it. I know some of the coaches took it very seriously, some of them not really so much. And I think the ones that did take it seriously were the ones that had a bit more of a pulse on the amateur scene, that being Joey Nubsy, Saints. Those were probably 2 of the more prominent figures in that scouting series.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of their friends are in challengers right now.
Yeah, and it was very interesting kind of listening into the coaches and kind of like what they were saying or what they were commenting uh, on what their team was doing and what plays they were making, and if it was the right or wrong play at the time. But outside of like what they were discussing while like the teams were playing, they didn't really give too much advice to the players. I'm assuming that it's realistically a pickup team. So obviously not everything's going to be perfect, and unless there's something that you see that's like very prevalent that they're doing incorrectly or something like that, you're not really going to make a comment on it. I would imagine. But
Yeah, true.
I know you didn't get to watch a lot of it. I watched a decent amount of it. I had it going on as kind of background noise during a good portion of the day. And I was mostly in Nubsy's stream, especially on day 1, since it was him and I Hold Shift kind of casting over all of his
Shift.
matches. So that was probably one of the higher produced, I guess, broadcasts of it. I know day
Yes.
2 it was I Hold Shift and Saints doing it, but I'm probably a little biased to the players Nubsy drafted day 1 for the European seed, but Hixie, who was on I don't believe it was that House Tarth lineup. If I go back, he was on the obtained esports lineup that got top 4 in this past Challengers Cups. He was disgusting in S&D for his squad. And then Whalers, as I said earlier, was really, really good as kind of a main AR player that was on Nubsy's squad. And then one player that I don't see in the top 8 for either of the Challengers Cups was a kid by the name of Trotty. And he was, I like what he was doing in the games was very, like, he was playing his life extremely well. It was very
Yeah,
frustrating
for
for the
sure.
team to kind of take him out. There were a lot of situations where he was the last one up and he had to buy a decent amount of time for his team. And so he was just kind of throwing shoulders, putting bullets in, shooting every now and then to kind of just delay the other team from pushing him on like a control point or something to buy
Right.
just enough time for his team to come in and assist him. And I thought that was kind of like very intelligent play from him, and that was something I know Nubsy commented on too, was how important and like intelligent the plays he was making on the map were for that.
Yeah,
Um,
we harp on that a lot too. You have to find out when you're not supposed to be shooting at people and when you're supposed to be playing these like weird bait roles or something to that effect, so that way we can better play the kids. So or play our numbers. So I mean, it's always nice to see that get accentuated, especially at like top AM challenger level where people feel like they can really be at. So um, it's nice. Feels like the skill gap is narrowing very quickly between the challengers and the pros.
yeah, and one I guess some stats that might be relative to that was I believe Afro went first pretty much in all of those drafts for on the UK side. Bids, who was on that Singularity squad, he went, I believe, pretty much second for the vast majority of those days as well. While we're talking, I'll try and bring up kind of a full list of the draft order for that. Um, but going to, I guess, kind of the NA side, there was definitely, I feel like, a huge shift in how serious the NA players took it compared to like the UK players took it. Uh, and I think that was extremely prevalent in kind of the roster that you saw Nubsy draft the first day in the UK. He drafted up Pander and
Yeah.
Proto, and they didn't seem to give a crap about the Challenger series, the scouting series at all. Which, to my eyes, that's just
It's kind of a bad look.
it's an extremely bad look, especially since they didn't do too well last season. They didn't look great in that. Like, you don't want to look bad against the people you're competing against getting picked up on a squad ever. You never want to do that. Otherwise, like, I can go back, I can look at the past season, I can look at what happened here, even though they were like everyone was calling them pickup eights or glorified H, which is something I highly disagree with, but I mean, you're getting top 32 in Challengers Cups with a team of your choosing.
True.
Like, it's just not a good look at all. So I do not understand why people weren't taking the Scouting Ground series 100% seriously. And it was a thing from the coach's side too. I mean, there was a time during the stream, I believe it was day 3, when a lot of the coaches just wanted to chalk it. And this was like on stream and they had to mute out because they were just kind of harping on it and saying like, I don't want to be here. I would much rather give my time to my team, which is something I can completely understand.
Right.
And there were a lot of points that I can agree with from kind of the player's perspective. Is, well, there wasn't a Challengers Cup coming up that weekend that it occurred. I don't believe. Actually, was there? No, there wasn't. Um, so there wasn't. This happened during the week last week, and the Challengers Cup and happened 2 weekends ago. Um, so there wasn't even a Challengers Cup. The Challengers Cup was a whole month away, and Roster Mania was happening at this time. And teams were saying it's more valuable for me to practice with my team for a Challengers Cup that's a month away, that probably half the rosters are going to be different for, than it would be to show myself and my talent to these pro teams that have no clue who the hell I am. Because
True.
pretty much the only coaches that knew who any of these players were was Saints and Nubsy. Nubsy the most. Like he actually knew who pretty much every single AM was. And none of the other coaches, some of the coaches didn't even know if a player, like what region a player was from, like if they spoke any English or not in the UK one. They literally had to like ask Nubsy, like if they spoke French or if they spoke English or whatnot. And it was pretty embarrassing. Like they did no research on these players. So the coaches
Right.
didn't put in any amount of time to actually research these players for their drafting. And so if you don't see any effort from the coach, you as a player, you're not going to feel like you want to put in any effort. You feel like your time is being wasted. And it's just a terrible situation, kind of like all around.
I think what happened is that the coaches weren't sure about the efficacy of the Challengers Cup. Like they weren't sure how well they were going to be able to find talent and players. Um, so they scheduled a scouting series and then saw that the Challengers Cup was really good and put this off. And this is a disaster of an event. It's really what it sounded like. I'm really glad I didn't waste a lot of time, trying to get invested in it. I think the Challengers Cup looks on these AM players are just more valuable at this point than a scouting series ever will be. So I hope that next year we don't do a scouting series and we just stick with Challengers Cup because it's very obvious that the Challengers Cup is A, more entertaining, B, you get the same looks from players, if not better looks, and C, the scouting series was just a complete mismanaged piece of junk. Like, whoever was in charge of that should not be in charge of anything for a while. So,
I disagree with that. Like I agree that the scouting series and in the end was a failure, but I think that's partially from the mindset because of the mindset of the AM players going into it and the mindset of the coaches going into it. Like they didn't look at it as anything valuable, as a resource for anything. When you get result, like pretty much the only thing you get from people playing in Challengers Cups is you see results. You see a result of a team. You don't see anything out of an individual player because half of these players aren't even streaming their Challengers Cups matches. So you don't see the mini map, you don't get the comms, you don't know anything about how they operate in a team and how you only see the result. You don't see the process at all. And when you're picking up a player, you want to know how they're going to affect your process.
yeah, I can agree. I can agree with that to some points, but these guys do get plenty of looks. Like, there's plenty of observers in there. There are guys like I Hold Shift that stream the Challengers Cup. There's plenty of talent there that's already trying to get
I
eyes
hold
on
shift
this,
can
and
only
it will
stream
grow.
one match at a time.
I understand, and he's only one guy, but at the same time, like that will become more popular. There will be more people that will show up for that, and I believe that the Challengers Cup would be the way to grow the community in a far better way than like scouting series or any of this other stupid like popularity contest bullcrap. So
I mean, I definitely think the Challengers Cup is better to like grow the scene, but I think a scouting series can definitely hold its benefits to both the franchise teams and the AM scene. I think maybe you just have to throw some type of incentive or something into it, like out of the players that you draft or out of the people in the series, you have to pick up one for like your AM team or whatever, your challengers team. Like
yeah, then I don't know. It's just like there needs to be a lot more planning and preparation, and people need to be invested in it, and it just seems
I
like none of that's there.
I hate to make this comparison because I know it's different, but how is the scouting series like what's the difference between the scouting series and an NFL combine? You're there to show your talent to the people. Like they can look at your highlight reel from high school or college or whatever, but they don't know you. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing.
Well, yes, but also no. It is because yes, it is a bunch of players that are forced to be in a position and try to compete, but they aren't playing the game of football at the combine. They're doing like weird little, drills, and they're running routes, and like the 40-meter or 40-yard dash is the big thing, and all that stuff. This isn't the same thing, and it could literally be a one-day event that could just happen behind the scenes. If they wanted to film it, they could film it, but I just don't think it's realistic. But I feel like if they would want to try to formalize towards that process, they would need to try and figure out a way to do that with drills, or VOD review, or understanding, or quizzing, or like just playing games against each other. I don't know how much you're gonna see out of that,
Yeah.
especially whenever the players don't even speak the same language half the time,
Yeah,
which is
that's
hilarious.
definitely an issue, at least for the European one. Most of the language barriers though weren't too bad for that one. At least I didn't hear of anyone having too many issues with that. And I mean,
Right.
usually if you're in the UK, like they know enough of like the English call outs to at least make it through in 8th series with
Right.
English players or anything along
American
those
players.
lines. Yeah.
True.
Um, yeah, it's interesting. I just really am not a fan of the fact that it's like, okay, what can we do for the AM players? Okay, we'll do this. We'll do a scouting series, supposed to be kind of like a combine or whatever. And
Right.
then the AM players are like, yeah, that sucked. Like we hate you. Like they they're like trying to do something for you, and then you just kind of turn against them in that fact.
It, some of that just translates to the fact that they didn't perform well, I'm sure, and then they wanted to just throw a fit about it, which is also very telling of players. And unfortunately, that's what happens whenever you've got a big old swelled head because you think you're a hot stuff ex pro or whatever. Not naming any names,
I think the
but
scouting. I think another thing too is like you can have a team that works well together and can win, but that doesn't
true.
mean necessarily that player is going to be a good fit outside of that team. And I think
Well,
with the
also,
scouting series, with getting to see a look of players on a variety of rosters, you kind of, I imagine if you like if they played as a team like that roster and they didn't just stat whore, and that's something you could kind of tell through watching it if you have an experienced eye. You could probably
oh yeah, for sure.
compile a decent list of like, hey, these players, they're really good, and you could fit them into like maybe this roster or this roster, depending on like what you need. I mean, you could look at like the win to loss ratio of kind of like the top echelon of players or whatever. I mean, Afro,
Yeah.
he was the first pick, and he won 80% of his games. So
I think I think the other thing that goes into it is, and I don't really want to cut you off too much, but I think the other big factor is that at that level, it doesn't matter what your gun skill is. It really doesn't. It doesn't matter how well you can statistically perform against your opponents because you're going to be scrimming them all the time. You'll learn them, and you'll figure it out. What matters more, in my opinion, is the chemistry between the players and how well you think they can like get into the culture that you're trying to develop in your org. And that doesn't, like, you can't see that in the scouting combine unless you're like talking to the players actively, seeing
yeah, you
seeing
can
what
see
they're
that
thinking.
more in a scouting combine though than you can from just looking at the results and picking up a player based on those because you're not talking to them at all. In the scouting
True.
combine,
I
you get to spend at least a 4 hour period with them, talking to them. Oh, and in their matches. So I
Right,
like
and if it happens that way, it happens that way, and that would be what I would want to see out of that more. As somebody from like the coaching side of things, I would much rather see how well you interact with other players in not really game related situations, rather than how you're performing in the game at that level. I mean, at at the level that we coach at, I mean, yeah, we're also looking at, hey, can you shoot straight? Hey, can you, um, yeah, how well are your in-game comms and all that stuff? But at the high levels, you're looking at somebody who's like, all right, do you have a big head on you? Are you toxic? Like, Am I going to have to worry about, de-escalating conflicts all the time with you? Are you a weirdo and are you going to text, my players' girlfriends, not naming any names? So like it's just that would be the stuff that I would want to know as a coach
Yeah, they're dirty
over how
laundry,
good they are.
which in the AM scene, most people air out other people's dirty laundry uh, in the Twitter timeline, as we've seen just last year. There was so much challengers drama.
It happens every single day. It happens
Yeah,
every single day on Twitter.
literally every single day.
COD Twitter is best Twitter. On God, you're listening to this, just start following people.
But yeah, I guess kind of wrapping that up, I was disappointed in people's mindset towards it. I don't think it was as bad as people made it out to be. Obviously, it was bad once it got to day 3 and no one wanted to do it anymore. So people started just not showing up or opting out or whatever, even though they had committed to the 4 days technically, which is a bit of an issue.
That's a bad look on yourself as well. Like how are you supposed to legitimize yourself and take this seriously whenever you won't even show up to the scouting series that you've been afforded a huge opportunity to go to? Like that always
Yeah.
pisses me off with
And
players.
so,
You're trying to make money off of this. Act like you're professional.
yeah. So NA, they were still able to do a day 3, kind of. I'm not sure. I actually stopped watching after kind of the shit show that happened with EU of them not really able to get enough players, so they had to lower it to 8 teams. And then after that occurred, they had to redraft NA because after the NA players saw that the EU players were able to get out of it, like a bunch of them tried to get out of it. And then they didn't even try for day 4. Day 4 actually got canceled because they wanted to compete in a Toronto 5K, which is why the hell is Toronto running a 5K during the scouting series, which is run by the
Uh,
CDL? Like, how does that happen? And this wasn't even, Toronto did it again. They ran a Warzone tournament on the same day New York was having a freaking Warzone tournament. Like, schedule your shit better. Gosh damn.
yeah, it doesn't help if you guys have events going on at the same time. It's hard to watch two things at once, but I don't know.
I mean, I know. Well, what is the money for it was a 5K, a Toronto 5K, but I don't know how high you had to place. But I know at least some of those players that got invited to the scouting series did not get any money from that Toronto 5K. So, yeah, just a huge mess of a thing. And so I hope if they do it again, the CDL can do some things to improve upon it, since I do think there are definitely some areas to improve upon it. Uh, like they got to maybe add a little bit more incentive to the players, obviously, since the players clearly did not want to do it. And then also, I think the mindset of the players and the coaches has to change for this to work successfully if they do continue with doing a scouting series once a year. But moving on from that into a brief conversation about GAs, because I think that is honestly the last thing we have to talk about. The next episode that we do, which will be in 2 weeks from today, the Wednesday, the 23rd, we'll be going into our predictions for the regular season and ranking the rosters that we have for the Pro League. But moving back into a conversation of GAs, which we've had quite a few times on here.
Every time.
Yes, we got a message from Tony Flame on the Reddit.
Tony Flame.
So great communication from Treyarch, fabulous communication from Treyarch, which makes
Yep,
it
two
all
thumbs
the
up.
more annoying that pros feel the need to GA stuff. But he actually defended GAs. And so I'm actually, yeah, sort of. And so I'm actually going to read his Reddit post. So it says from Tony Flame of Treyarch. Hello, friends. I see a lot of chatter on here about GAs going overboard recently. I would definitely agree they go overboard. He did not say that. I am saying that. And there is a pretty big misconception about what this all means. I care about this community deeply and would like to help you all understand what's going on a little better, even if I can't tell you everything just yet. We've been working with the pro players closer than ever this year, and we're all still finalizing rule sets for the official CDL season kicking off next year. Because of the massive amount of content being offered in Create a Class and Gunsmith in particular, this takes some time and playtesting to get the right competitive gameplay in place. I think this, what he mentioned there, the Create a Class system and the Gunsmith, is a huge reason we're seeing a lot of these GAs and a lot of difficulty in balancing the game is because you don't really have to make any decisions. There's no point system. There's no limited 10 points as there has been in prior Call of Duties where you're only allowed a certain amount of points to create your class. And with Gunsmith being guaranteed 5 attachments on every weapon, you can make every weapon pretty damn good to the point where pros feel they need to GA them. I have to thank the players for taking this on with their critical and thoughtful approach, but also in keeping confidence with the discussions we've had. What the pro players are doing by shifting the GA rules is experimenting and helping determine what the rule set should and will be for the CDL season. Because the pro players are actively engaged in streaming and sharing their time and gameplay with you, everyone here gets to see it happening live but doesn't have all the context. That can cause some overreactions to what is actually very normal and healthy iteration. We are looking at some new ways to solidify the officially sanctioned content for the CDL, which we will talk more about next year, and working closely with the players and their insight on what those rules will look like. So I'm going to go to you, Kevin, to give me your opinions on this.
On Tony Flame, first of all, he's a straight up dog for doing this. Like, this is how you interact with a community at Infinity Ward.
They didn't even
So
interact with us.
exactly, like that's the crazy thing is now we're finally feeling like we're being heard, like our voices are being heard, and hopefully that kind of de-escalates the situation.
Yeah, but the scary
Hopefully
thing
people
is
just
if
don't.
scary thing is if this will continue, if this kind of communication will continue into next year.
I I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch. I just want to keep praising what I believe is the right move.
Yeah.
Um, as far as GAs go, I think that what's happening finally, is the devs are going to listen to us, and whatever the pros say, they're just going to make them the bans. And I think that they have a really healthy relationship now, and because of that, they're able to come to good compromises, and the devs don't feel like the pros are taking over the game. And the pros are taking that as, okay, yes, like we're putting in more time than literally anybody else. We're getting paid to play this game at the highest level. Like, we should know what the competitive setting is over everybody else. GAs are bad for the game. GAs are bad for somebody just trying to get into competitive COD and not understanding that there's also an unofficial rule set that everybody at the highest levels play by, and if you don't play by them, then they turn on the crazy score streaks and pull out AUGs and just fry you. Um, so and it's that's toxic, obviously, but I digress. Um, it would make more sense to have a unified ban list so that way we don't have to have any of these situations arise again. And maybe that's what he's alluding to at the beginning because he said something along the lines of, well, I'm not ready to, display everything yet. The season's not until um when does the season start? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't believe it's been announced yet when the official start date of the regular season is.
Right. I know College COD got announced February 1st, which is really good. And
Yeah.
Challengers has been started. Like
I
if you don't
I
have
have met, well, Challengers is officially starting up after all the Challengers Cups are over because that's what gives seeding for the challengers in a sense.
right.
I believe that's how it's working. Like the Challengers Cup is like the preseason seeding determination for what is going to be the regular season of Challengers. So I imagine the first event will be around the same time that the Challengers Cups are over. So I am guessing, since the Challengers Cup 4 ends January, what is it, January 18th, I believe. I think probably the CDL will start up the week after that. So probably the last week of January is my guess. Kevin, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Um, yeah, I understand that like that's how the lineup's gonna work. Um, I don't know. It's so crazy that we have so much to talk about, and this is like still probably at least a month out.
Yeah, there's
So
definitely a decent amount to talk about. One thing I think, I guess, to kind of summarize what Tony Flame is saying is GAs at this stage in the game are more to playtest certain rules for the upcoming season of the CDL, which that is, I guess, a good mindset to have with them, but I don't think like the players are testing enough things to actually kind of get a grasp on that. I mean, I don't think they've ever tried using Jammer. I don't think they've ever tried using thermals with cold blooded and smokes. I know they haven't tried using smokes since the supposed trophy fix, at least not on any streams. And they haven't tried using any of the tac rifles, probably OP, but uh, they haven't tried using those. They haven't tried using LMGs. Like there's a lot of things in the game that they haven't tried using in a competitive setting because they off the bat think that it's broken or OP. And so I think that right there is a glaring issue in kind of what Tony's hoping GAs are going to be. Um, Additionally, I personally do think it's a little bit out of hand, but like what I hope we kind of see from this is the things that are getting GA'd, they get slightly nerfed, or other things get slightly buffed, so that we have overall, in the end, a more balanced game. But kind of like right now, from my point of view and kind of what I've been saying, and also I guess what other people have started to be saying, is that the pro players GAing stuff is causing them to GA other stuff that isn't even OP. And that's kind of like the point we're at right now, where they're just banning a bunch of things that maybe don't necessarily need to be banned because the thing that they thought was broken before uh, caused other things to be, I guess, broken in their eyes. Uh,
it's always going to be a big convoluted mess. But I mean, they're doing this before the season even starts. This is just a healthy
yes, which is a good thing.
progression of things, and at least like I have no complaints about GAs right now. I think that they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. This is how I want every season to go. I love what's happening right now.
Yeah, I think they could be a bit more creative in their iterations of the rule sets. But there are certain things that I've said in the past that I don't see any reason, if it's to test like things that make a bit more sense now, why certain things might be GA'd and other things might not. Even if Slasher verbally attacks me in Twitter comments instead of explaining things, I guess that's whatever. But going to something that's a pretty large GA, I guess we could talk about, is map GAs. They've GA'd Cartel because of the
Yeah.
bushes, the shrubbery. Raid came in. Raid is more than likely, like, teams have already been scrimming it. It plays very
Yes.
well from what I can tell, obviously, since nothing changed outside of it looking even better than it did in BO2 because of engine updates and graphic updates and whatever. It's no longer 2D grass. There's actually 3D grass, which is nice. But Control's in. They have it for Hardpoint. I believe they're also playing it for Control as well. Control plays pretty well. The B site is a little bit interesting, but more like pretty much 100%. Raid's going to be in. Cartel's out. The other question is the other map that got added in Pines. What are your opinions on that map being in the competitive rule
No,
set?
no,
No?
just no, no. Stop,
No? I'm not
stop,
talking
please.
about for control or for S&D, but for
Nope,
hardpoint.
not even. Nope, not even
Because
hard point.
so like the I'll try and defend myself here because I don't think it's
You're usually really bad about this.
all right. Um, I'll give a theoretical defense because I think it
Okay.
probably could work, and I think it could probably be better than some of the other map options that we do have. Uh, more, mostly kind of. I know a lot of people like it, especially for pubs. It's not bad, but I think recently players have not liked it all that much. Being Crossroads Strike Hardpoint. So the one thing everyone said with Pines when they first played it, because Scump was trying to get them to scrim it against, I believe it was Dallas, to see if like it was going to be competitively viable. Dallas had to leave because they had another scrim lined up, so they didn't get to play it. And then later on, Optic loaded into that map to run around it, and they're like, "No way, this map is way too big. We can't play it."
Yes,
I've
that's
played I've played that map in pubs, and for a hard point, it does not feel like a very big map. The reason being because
this is
the
66.
spawns are set up in a way that you spawn close to the hill no matter what. And I think that's kind of a way that you can take these large maps that would otherwise not be valid and kind of make them valid as if you have a really strong spawn system implemented on them to make the map feel smarter because you're always playing around a specific point of that map. And I think that's something
Yeah, but
that
then that's just.
currently is done very well on Pines.
I'm just gonna say that's 6v6. Maps just play so drastically different on 4v4. Um, and I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
that,
not like
that is a good
not
point
like I
to
said.
bring up. I have not played it 4v4. I've played it 6v6.
So yeah, once you start to play it on 4v4, you'll realize like it's just it's not there. It's not it. Like Pines is definitely not going to be a thing. Nobody's scrimming it right now, and there's a
Has
reason.
anyone
So
tested it 4v4?
yeah, I mean everybody's gotten on it if you take competitive COD seriously and been like, all right, let's take a
Well,
look at this and see where the hard points
none
are.
of the
And
pro teams seem to scrim it. At least the ones
well,
that
it's
stream their
because
scrims.
they've already done it and dusted it. They don't like. It's not gonna happen. And if it does, you can quote me on it. But like I said,
No, it more than likely
fine with a
won't
potential
happen
Twitter ad
because
for
it
something that
more than
is not
likely
gonna
won't
happen.
happen because I think pros have already kind of written it off without giving it too much of a try. But that's at least from what I've seen. Maybe they've given it a try behind scenes
Yeah, that's
without
usually
anyone
what
knowing.
happens.
But
Yeah, because they don't want to like give out false information too. Think about it. Like if pros start scrimming this map, the effect is that other people will start to scrim it. It was like cartel. Like they scrimmed it a couple of times, and then people were scrimming it all of a sudden, and then we were like, and then we didn't see it anymore, and we were like, all right, well, never mind. Whatever the pros do, we do. That's just how it goes.
unless you're the AM scenes, because the AM scenes have been GAing stuff that the pros have not been GAing. As we can see with the European scene, they have the AK banned, even though the AK is not broken.
AK's broken.
All right, it's
Oh,
not.
it's really good.
It's good,
It is.
but it's not broken. There's a difference between being a good gun and being a broken gun. And that's something that a lot of people do not understand.
It's it's not whenever there's dedicated servers and the server refresh is at 20 hertz, it'll be better. That's that's whenever it'll be fine and the GA can go away. But right now, if you're playing on some ridiculous ping and getting, host screwed, because that's COD, that's competitive COD anyway. So if you're running around and getting host screwed all the time, you're not wanting the AK anywhere near the competitive scene, just because it can two tap people, and you literally can't compete against it. I mean, it feels
It
like
can't
a
two
burst.
tap, it kills in four.
Eh, I'm just saying what it does when you have a laggy connection to it, and right now this is a very internet based, or it's a very host based game because of how the server refresh rate.
All right.
So, like I said,
Well,
once dedicated
you
servers
heard
come
it here
out, it'll
first.
be
Kevin
fun.
is going against the North American pro scene, who does not think the AK is ban worthy. I believe Simp even said the AK isn't even good. So we'll have to see how this kind of storyline continues throughout the season.
No, I'm not saying that the AK is GA or ban worthy. I'm saying specifically if you're considering that EU traditionally has bad server hosts, then do you think they want a gun that two taps in that equation? No, and that's why they have the GA. I'm not saying that like it's it's an OP gun. I'm just saying on bad connection it will two tap, and that's not fair. That's all
Okay,
I'm saying. So
fair argument.
the GA won't stick in any sort of like, oh hey, by the way, we have all 48 pro players in Texas. Like they don't care. They're gonna use whatever they want, and it's not really gonna matter. The only thing that won't be there are things that have insanely high time to kills, like bursts or the usual suspects.
I
So
guess something bit interesting, or I guess a GA that we haven't mentioned, is the 1911 is GA'd.
yeah, so that thing right now is a pocket rocket. Like you can two bullet people on bad server right now.
Yes,
And
the
like it's
1911 is good, but is it any better than the rest of the pistol options? The Magnum's really good, and I imagine the
the
three
Magnum's
round.
also GA'd.
Okay,
And the Diamatti is terrible.
the Diamati's
It's
terrible.
it's it is very very bad. Um, if you
S-
tuber somebody, you got really lucky. Like you probably got a headshot.
That's very different from the history of Treyarch games because usually
I
the three
I
burst
know
pistols are the
because
best.
right the RK7 Garrison at the end of Black Ops 4 was literally, we called it a pocket sog. We would literally be like, oh yeah, he pulled out a pocket sog on me. Um, yeah, it was GA'd. At the end of Black Ops 4 season. Like people did not use the RK7 Garrison because it was GA'd. Um, so who knows? They might do a rebalancing. They usually do that. So like, uh,
They do.
just
And
what I say
Treyarch's been
to everybody.
extremely proactive. So like
Yes,
I know I've been harping on GAs a bunch, and I will continue to harp on them, but it's
sure,
not
it's
it's
good
not
content.
kind of the end of the world right now because I think Tony Flame gave me a lot of confidence, and Treyarch, or I already had a lot of confidence in Treyarch, but Tony Flame gave me confidence in the pro players not to be idiots. And so a lot of this is quote unquote iterative development or whatever. And so I'm probably not going to lose my shit until we actually get to the start of the season, and then we'll have to see what happens with the GAs.
I think the only thing that I'm gonna lose my shit over in this season right now, my current predictions for what's gonna make me lose full, um, Paris Legion, just in general, anything Paris Legion related, I'm just gonna be mad, because it's gonna be an interesting storyline to follow all season, and I know that that team is going down in flames. Um, let's see, uh, Crim Six is probably gonna say something stupid. That usually makes me lose full. Um, I don't know. Honestly, with the year we just had, Nick, I have no idea what's about to happen this season. Truly, I would love to say that like, it's gonna be Atlanta phase or whatever, but who knows at this point, man.
Yeah, I truly don't. There's a lot of things that could just go up in flames. Actually, not
Yes,
not up in flames, but there's a lot of things that could hit us just right to tick us off, so to say, or things that
right.
are gonna fall flat. But I'm super happy with kind of what I've been seeing from Treyarch. I have a lot of faith in that developer. I'm never buying an Infinity Ward game again. I don't think. They've
Not
just
until things seriously change.
yeah. So I think that's probably going to wrap it up for this podcast, though. Be sure to tune in next podcast as we will be giving our rankings of the Pro League teams and kind of where we think they will be ending up. But do you have anything else you want to add? If not, we'll close. Oh, JCap, coach of 100 Thieves. Oak Boys Unite.
I was really hoping you wouldn't even announce that.
Yeah, it's not
But
too much of an announcement. You got Slasher on that team, so I don't know how much that even means
they picked
anything.
up Enable as a content curator. So I don't know.
100
It's
Thieves
just
did?
yeah.
Enables a
See,
content curator for
bro,
100.
what browser do you use? Internet Explorer?
I just don't
Seems like you
pay
use
any
Internet Explorer.
attention to like Enable because I don't really care. No offense,
What?
Enable. Like,
What?
but
All right, we're ending this
anything
podcast
anything
right
Oak
now.
Boys, I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, you're a friend of mine. Take this job. I am with Shady Narrow on this one. I hate the Oak Boys. I despise them
All right.
quite a
Well, I
lot.
was supposed to be the hot take guy this episode, and now at the very end,
Please, please. I always give the hot takes.
mm, yeah, because anyway,
All right. Well, that's
trying to make
gonna
me lose full at the end of the episode. Oh my God, just ended already.
that's the end of the episode. We'll see you guys next time.
All right, later.